Today's guest is Johnny Nelson MBE, former cruiserweight world champion, boxing analyst and nutrition fitness wizard.
I like that. Makes me sound smarter than what I am.
Well, actually, the reason I say that is because you're about to release an app, aren't you?
Yeah.
Can you say the date yet?
It'll probably mean mid-November.
Mid-November.
Proper nutrition. It's basically because I'd blown up in weight, and many people ask, "What have you done? Have you got back down to it?" And I just kind of tried to adopt the discipline I had when I boxed, but not as disciplined. Just change my eating habit in the tricks of the brain. When you just change your eating habits, I think a lot of people when they go on diets and things like that, you go on them for a while, then you break their habit, and then boom, you blow back up again. So I'm calling it proper nutrition because it's really simple, idiot proof. It's something I'd work with.
You're not an idiot.
So to me, I just think I'll share the love and let everybody else have a go as well. So it'll be pretty good. It's pretty cool.
Will there be, out of interest, will there be specific nutrition for women? Because obviously it's quite different, isn't it?
Women and men, all ages and sizes. It's a trick of a trade. That's what it is. It's tailored to whatever weight you are to help increase or decrease. And again, I'm talking. You realise I'm the kind of guy that it's about that more than anything else.
Yes.
Changing that mindset.
Yeah.
And if you've got the right mental mindset, then you can achieve almost anything. And so this focuses on that as well as the physical aspect of oneself. So hopefully it'll be well received.
I think it will, because I know from looking at some of your Instagram posts alone, just watching you, and you really do still keep up the fitness, don't you? I mean, you're really hard at it, and you can see that. I mean, a lot of athletes come out of the game and then, we've seen Ricky Hatton do this, no disrespect, but also to Paddy the Baddy. They just blow up in between, don't they?
I think they do that because you spent a life being disciplined and taking away the things you want, being able to drink and eat whatever you want. You lose a chunk of your life that most people have when you go out and party all the time. You can drink and do whatever. There's no restrictions. So if you spend a big part of your life in that kind of nunnery, then when all of a sudden there's no discipline, you can eat what you want, you can drink what you want. Like the sportsman or woman you are, there's an obsessive behaviour about yourself. So therefore you're going to go far and beyond what most people would do. So when you blow up, you really blow up.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what happens is you suffer the consequences of an adult when you're an adult. You can get away with it when you're a kid.
Yeah.
But as you get older, you'll see a lot of sportsmen and women actually blowing up like that. It's just, it kind of tapers out after a while, or unless you don't let it get too far, then there's no coming back. But it tapers out, you blow up and you think, you know what, I don't feel comfortable with myself. I know what the good version of me looks like. So you start working back towards that, but it's really hard the longer you leave it.
It's interesting, actually, because I do think you're a bit different in the sense that I said to you before we started, because I was just trying to do a bit of fact checking, but you started your professional boxing career in 1986, and it wasn't until 1999 that you won the title. You'd lost all the way up until that point. Is that right?
Yeah, won and lost. One loss and drew.
I mean, that's 13 years, really, of a lot of pain and a lot of loss and a lot of self-doubt. I would imagine that affects self-esteem, confidence, self-worth. But somehow you managed to keep going. And even though you are a boxer, and I said to you before we started, this isn't really about boxing. You mentioned the mind, and you led really beautifully into this, because obviously there's something about you and the way you think that's different. Most people, I'm not saying athletes, but most non-athlete people would give up and try something else at least. Or if they weren't going to give up, they would certainly struggle to keep going.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you did at times.
Oh, yeah,
so
I did. I think the reason why I probably was on that journey was just put in public. We all start somewhere.
Yeah.
And of course, no matter what you do, unless you're naturally talented, gifted, you're going to stumble, you're going to fall, you're going to trip up. It's just that not everybody sees it. They only see the good side of it. So when I started boxing professionally, and I was losing, I was drawing, I won 1 or 2. That was part of my learning. And maybe because of my mindset going into boxing, which I'm sure we'll come onto, I actually used to think upside down. And when I say thinking upside down, in my head, I didn't think I was good. I just thought they were bad. You understand?
Yeah. Yes.
So whenever I won, I didn't think, yes, goodbye, well done. I just thought he was rubbish. He must have been really bad. So I never gave myself any credit to grow my confidence, grow my self-belief. And when I lost to somebody, I thought, well, I'm not good anyway, so I can live with that. It didn't kill me, it didn't ruin me, because I never believed in myself like Brendan Ingle believed in me. So, and he understood that was going to be a long, hard journey. And he said, as long as you stick to it and you listen to me, you'll be a world champion. I didn't believe him. And then I started to think, well, maybe once I became champion of Europe, I look back on how bad I was as an amateur and how bad my career started off. I'm thinking, well, maybe you're the best fighter in Europe. Because I really believe that if you're a champion, I believed the position I was in.
Yeah.
So when I was British champion, I believed I was the best British fighter.
But you had to get there to believe it.
It wasn't just a title.
Yeah.
I didn't think, oh, I've got it. I believed I was the best.
Yeah.
Because I was so used to being brutally honest with myself. So it was a gift in a way, because I thought, I knew if I was good and I knew if I was bad. I thought, so when I won the European title, I thought, maybe I can do this. Maybe, because you had 13 amateur fights, you only won 3, you lost your first 3 professional fights, and you've somehow got to it. They can't. Oh, you're the champion of Europe, and that's how the seed was planted, and the confidence slowly but surely took a long, long time for the penny to drop, and it really didn't drop until I was about 28 years old. And so I was a boy in a man's body.
Yeah,
as a boy that didn't have the confidence, didn't have the self-belief, didn't have the self-validation, which I understand is so important, not just in sport, in everything to do with life. Self-validation is everything. Once I got the self-validation, I was unstoppable. And it changed my direction of thinking, relationships with family, friends, professionally.
Yeah.
But that, to me, I understand. When I look at people and when I see sportsmen, when I see business, when I see politicians talking, and you can hear that little chink in the arm, I think, once you believe in yourself, it doesn't matter if nobody else does. If you truly believe in yourself, that is the beginning of success. That is the beginning of your journey.
Well, it's so interesting. Have you heard of the Hermetic principles?
I haven't.
So they're like these ancient Egyptian principles. There's 7 of them. And it starts with your thoughts create your world. So your reality is based on your thoughts. Everyone's got a different world because everyone's reality is based on their own thoughts, which is based on their own experiences, which again, we'll get into with you. And then that container that you live in of thoughts is where you vibrate. So the vibration that you're at is either going to repel or attract something that's on the same frequency. And obviously you could have, and I think this is you and Brendan, the same frequency, energy frequency, but polar opposite ends of it. So you didn't believe in yourself, but you magnetized Brendan in, or vice versa. And that team, because you're on the same frequency, worked. And then
makes sense.
That kind of idea of, which is in those principles as well, what goes up must come down, and vice versa. And where you were down, you obviously needed to go up, and I'm sure there were ups and downs in between. And then just the rhythm, getting into that rhythm and finding that rhythm, which took you a bit longer than other people.
It's a mindset, it's a habit, it's got to become a lifestyle. But I keep saying, and I forever repeat myself, it doesn't matter how many smart one-liners I come out with. It doesn't matter how much motivation I say to you, do this, do that, do this. If I don't believe in it, then I pass it on.
Yeah.
It's flawed.
Absolutely.
I go and do my talks. I'd never have a script, ever have a script.
No, I don't.
I prefer Q&A.
Yeah.
And when I do a Q&A, the host will, like you try to do, just like, what can I ask you? Anything. Don't tell me what you're asking, just ask me.
Yeah.
Because I think it's more natural, more instinctive, more honest.
Yeah.
I don't have a script because you can always remember the truth. You can never remember a lie.
So true.
And so my life, I know my life, regardless of where you are in life, from where I started to where I am, it's light years away. And why is that? Because I wasn't an academic. I wasn't I left school with no qualifications. I had the handwriting and reading ability of a 10-year-old when I left school.
Wow.
So it wasn't as though I was naturally gifted in anything like that. My education started when I met Brendan. So we start school at 5, 6, whatever it is. My education started at 15. And so I had to go through the school of life for me to get to the end and qualify, to get to a stage and qualify and get the most of it. And I believe that penny dropped when I was about 20, 28 years old, 29 years old.
Do you know, last time I was in this studio, I was with Terry Christian and we were talking about boys' education in his life. And I actually said on that episode, which is weird that you've just said about 15, I don't think a lot of boys are ready for any form of education until they're about 15 anyway, because they're movers, they need to move their body and they need to express themselves physically more than academically. Some boys are more academic than others, of course, but this is why you see a lot of boys struggling with the education system because they're not actually ready. They've got so much that they need to do to get out of their system before they can knuckle down. But clearly, who you meet along the way has an impact. So even though you say you left school with no qualifications, I do wonder why that was. Was that because you just needed to move and you needed to be more physical? Or was that because you didn't have the right influences? Because clearly when Brendan comes in, it changes.
So I think some people are very good visually.
Yeah.
Some people are very good mentally. Some people are very good with their hands.
Yeah.
I was very good visually. You showed me something, then I could compute in my head and think, I can do that. I was really good at mental arithmetics, but I was rubbish at exams.
Yeah.
I'm really good with words, but my handwriting's terrible. I can't, so I have to write something down about 15 times. Okay, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound real. It doesn't sound authentic. It doesn't sound like me. And my spelling's terrible.
Yeah.
And so that's, but for young men, I personally think that a great line that Brendan always used, he said, schools teach you to remember. I teach you to think. Which one's more powerful?
Well, obviously,
you can point you wherever you want in the world, and the one that can think or the one that can remember, which one's going to survive?
Yeah, the one that can think, always.
And that's the difference. And for schools don't teach you life
No, they
skills.
don't.
They don't. And even the kids still making the same mistake now.
I know.
They don't teach you life skills.
No.
So if somebody like me can get to this point of my life and achieve something so much more, when I speak to youngsters coming from at school, I say, look, you've got a much better head start than I have.
Yeah.
Because you're smarter than me.
Yeah.
You've got you're more academic than I am. You're a better start from me. So don't look at me thinking, oh my God, how's he done that? I'd never be able to do that. I'd expect you to do twice as much because you've got a better start than me. And so it's just getting people to understand teaching is so important. And it's not, my middle daughter, India, when she was younger, she was, she's always been kind of not the one to open conversation.
Yeah.
And when she's in her own, like Bailey would always be the one that would open conversation and then Indra would join in. And we could see she was like that growing up. She just wasn't very social like I was. I was a shy kid.
Yeah.
And I cried if an adult spoke to me.
Aww.
And India, I could see that in her. And so learning from Brendan, how Brendan put me in situations, I remember there was a hairdresser's near my house, and she'll know now. There was a hairdresser near my house, and I went to the hairdressers, gave him 20 quid. I said, do me a favour, let her work here, let her come for an interview, give her a job, just sweeping up, making cups of tea. It wasn't the job. The job was for her to be around people, speak to people.
Yeah.
How you doing, love? Are you all right?
Yeah.
And is then conversing with people.
Yeah.
On her own merit.
Yeah.
And then she's used to speaking to people to conversate.
Couldn't agree more.
And so I did this for about a year. She had no idea. Aww. So I said, India, you've got to get a job. Get some pocket money. Try that hairdresser. I think there's a job going there. She went in, boom. I think after 6 months, the lady said, you know what, I can't take your money, I'll pay her.
No.
I said, no, it's all right. Because I wanted it. So the whole, and this is parents, if you're listening, you've got kids that you're just trying to get them out of the house, you're trying to get them to socialise, you're trying to get them to learn something. these are the sacrifices or ways of thinking you've got to think outside the box.
Yes.
To make your little person a big
person, yeah.
To understand how to communicate with people.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, I saw a difference in India. She blossomed a bit. I was fortunate enough to meet Brendan. And then the tricks of the trade I learned was from Brendan.
So, on that note, I think you're absolutely right. And actually, a hairdresser's for a young girl is a perfect place to go. A lot of the girls that are at the hairdressers where I go, they've got a real beautiful atmosphere there, bringing young girls in and, you know, as apprentices. And it's such a beautiful, a lot of hairdressers are quite cliquey. This one's such a beautiful, I'm going to call it out actually, G&E's in Northampton. And their girls learn how to be women through that process. And, you know, you just see this beautiful growth. And you're right, it's being in a situation where you naturally can evolve rather than being in a system, like an education system, that expects you to fit in under their own terms. And actually, it fails on every level because everyone's an individual. But when you're in a hairdresser's or in a boxing gym or wherever, there's loads of different individuals and you kind of have to grow into that individual.
That's right. You've got to survive.
Yeah. And even more so in boxing than hairdressing. So tell me a bit about you and Brendan, that relationship in particular, because obviously you've become the father that you are as well and grandfather as a result of that relationship with him, and not purely him, because there was, you know, an underpinning before you met him. But tell me a bit about Brendan, because I know that you've mentioned him a few times today, and every time I read anything about you, as I was researching to do this, Brendan comes up every single time. So tell me a bit more about
Brendan
him.
was the missing piece in my life. And so when I met him, I just knew straight away. I'd heard things about him. You know, he's a con man. He's a hustler. You know, he's from a place called Ringsend in Dublin.
Right.
Family of 13. They all fought, they all boxed. Brendan came over. He was a Catholic marrying a Protestant. He had a wife, 5 kids. Lived across the road from the gym. He lived boxing, lived it and dreamt boxing. When I met Brendan, I was just another one of his products. There were many of me that came across Brendan. But I realised when I met Brendan, I needed him without actually realising it. This guy spoke to me. He listened to me. He asked me questions. And he made me think. I can remember the first day. He made me think and he put me in situations where I thought, he said, "What's your name?" And I went, "Johnny." And he said, "Stop." He said, "Stop. Face the wall. Tell me about yourself for 2 minutes."
Facing the wall? Facing
the wall. So everybody's behind me.
Oh my God.
So you can put anybody in that situation. First of all, you're going to think somebody's mugging you off.
Yeah.
And then when you actually get down to doing it, you think, well, what am I going to say? It's not until you've tried it and then you think, damn, I should have said this. I should have said that. What Brendan was doing was making me think straight away. The education started that first day.
Yeah.
And he said, because I was pretty, it was probably like I had Tourette's. I couldn't shut my mouth. I was pretty direct. He said, "What have you heard about me?" And I said, "I've heard you're a con man." And he started laughing. He said, "Marvellous. What do you think?" I said, "I want to find out for myself."
Love it.
Good answer. And so this guy was so accepting. He was so open-minded, and he had that twinkle in his eye. He just knew. Yeah. He just knew people. He knew. And I don't know how long it took him to figure me out. Because as I said, I was a boy in a man's body. I was tall and skinny and lanky. But I was like I cried when an adult got in my personal space talking to me. I couldn't fight. I could cause trouble in an empty room.
Yeah.
But I was a lovable rogue at school.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I walked out with no qualification, because Mum would say, "Do you want to go to school today?" Yeah, because my mates are there.
Yeah.
And so Brendan got it. And at times, you know, he said, "Come on, we're going for a walk." How many parents do that today? We're going for a walk.
Yeah.
And he talked to me about all these dead people. Marcus Aurelius, Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Presidents, prime ministers.
God, he was
And he'd be talking. I'm like, why are you talking to me about these dead people? And so, and he's telling me these stories, story after story, telling me about Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion of the world. He'd talk about everything. He was so, his words were, he liked to play the fool to catch the wise.
Yeah.
Because he had the Irish accent.
Yes.
You know, he'd play the thick paddy, as he'd say it. So people had dismiss him and talk over him, or let the guard down. And African chieftains learn a lot by standing back, watching, learning, seeing how it operates, and then reacting. Brendan was brilliant at it. And so it wasn't, and I think looking back on it, the reason why he'd be telling me about all these dead people, because he wanted to normalize it, to say just because they're there, just because they've achieved so much, doesn't mean they're any different than you. And he tried to normalize success, to say, you can do this. They've done it. There's no difference between this guy and that guy and this guy and this lady and that lady. And he knew it was a long, drawn-out process. So I'm quite sure I wasn't the only person that was in that position, but I was the only person that stuck it out. So most people that were in that position, we talked to them about dead people, they'd leave, think, oh my God, he keeps on about all these. But I stuck it out. I kept coming back. I hated the gym. The downside of the boxing club was actually having to box.
Yeah.
So, but I'd go back, even though sometimes I'd go home crying because they'd beat me up because I looked older than what I was.
Yeah.
But I kept going back. I'm like, and maybe that's what Brendan saw. Maybe he thought, this kid's, I can do something here.